What up, YouTube? Back at it with another video. Today, I'm going to be talking about the best settings that optimize your Call of Duty Cold War experience and your streaming experience. So let's hop right into it. So first things first, you always want to use full screen no matter what. Windowed, it's not bad if you're trying to stream and kind of go between windows, but you are going to lose a lot of frames because of it. So I highly recommend just doing full screen. Always do the highest refresh rate your monitor is, unless you're trying to cap it at maybe 144, but most of the time leave it at the highest. Gameplay VSync, you obviously want this disabled. All this is going to doing is just set your game at 60 and it's going to make it look very bad, and just don't use it. If you have a G-Sync monitor or a FreeSync, that is way better to use and it's way more optimized for your system than this is. Menu VSync disabled. I use NVIDIA Reflex low latency on boosted because Modern Warfare and Cold War are both CODs that are very high CPU for some reason because it's not that well optimized yet. So when I put this in boosted, it makes my graphics card match the same output as the CPU, so it's both working at the same speed. That's allowing me to get the better performance and make my controller and everything more responsive. Render resolution, leave that at 100. Display resolution, always do whatever your monitor could put out. If you could do 1440p, then do that. If you could do 4K, then do 4K. I personally have a 240 Hz 1920 by 1080, so I'm gonna leave it as the regular natural. Aspect ratio, it's automatic. Colorblind, if you're going to change this like I did, the only thing I changed was the enemy color to purple, because there's some maps like Cartel where it's hard to see enemies, and if you do see them, the purple really shows their health and their name through the bushes, so it's so much easier to track them. Field of view, I use 120. This obviously affects your FPS, and I'm just used to 120 because it allows me to feel like I'm playing faster, and I like to see more of my surroundings. Yes, if you do lower it down a lot more, it does dramatically affect your FPS a good amount. Because if you go from 120 to say like 95 or 100, you're going to get at least like 20 frames back. You'll get a lot of frames back. ADS field of view. So this is a new thing that it's been in the past CODs, but now because COD pros are moving to PC, they're finally now seeing that affected. So I play at 120, and when you have affected on, it allows you to ADS, but it doesn't really zoom in for you. So when you shoot, it's so much easier to control your recoil. While independent, it zooms in all the way through your iron sights or your red dot and takes up your whole screen like it usually used to. So I highly recommend using affected. Brightness, just preference. Frame rate, I use unlimited, but once again, like I said, if you're using a 144 Hz monitor, I recommend capping your frame rate and then doing 145. Minimize game frame, I leave it at 60, so if I tab out, my game isn't still working at its hardest to produce the most frames out of the game. Texture quality, so this is another big thing. Obviously, you want the lowest, you want low, but there's some people that use the lowest. But one thing that I don't like about using lowest is that if you use a reticle, when you have your texture set all the way down, it makes the reticle all like wonky, and it's all different particles, and it's a big square, and you can't see it all if you're going to use it. So I recommend using low, so you can actually, because low actually fine-tunes the reticle, so you can actually see and actually use it. Model quality low, 4K, I have that disabled. Special effects quality medium. Screen space reflection, I have that disabled. Object view distance, this doesn't really it says it gives you better performance, but I don't really see it, so I just leave it at high. Water tessellation disabled. All of these low, except you want dynamic shadows on all, because maps like Garrison, if you're pushing out and there's like a room where there's lighting, and if we're pushing out toward yellow where the first hard point is usually, you can, if you have this on all, you can see the shadow before they even turn the corner, so it allows you to actually predict, oh crap, there's going to be a guy here, and you can pre-aim him. But if you have it on off, you're not going to be able to see any shadows, and you won't be able to tell if there's actually a person there, and you might actually die and lose your gunfight. Then the rest of this all, obviously you want ray tracing disabled, because these are a big FPS killer. These, if you're trying to play campaign or zombies, you can. Zombies, I tried it, it's okay, but mostly this is for campaign, and I highly recommend do not use this on multiplayer. Same thing as NVIDIA DLSS. I like to play my game with like anti-aliasing off and this off because I'm okay with the jagged edges, and for me personally, it gives me a big FPS boost, and I like it. I know a lot of people tend to do balance or quality, but it's all preference. But if you're trying to get the most out of your hardware and your streaming, I recommend doing disabled. Ambient occlusion, I have this disabled. Obviously, motion blur disabled. Motion blur quality, it doesn't matter because you have it already off. Subsurface scattering, I haven't really noticed anything about it, so I leave it as enabled. Order independent transparency, I have this disabled. Alright, VRAM. If you're just trying to play and just get the most FPS out of your game and most optimization, I highly recommend setting this to 90, because if you set it to 90 and you're just focusing on playing COD and that's it, it'll send most of your memory, and your whole system as a whole is going to work way better and load way better, and your frames and everything will be more responsive. But if you're streaming, I recommend doing 80, because you don't want all the VRAM going to COD but then leaving nothing for your stream, because then your stream's going to start scattering, the frames are going to drop on that, the frame quality's not going to look good. So highly recommend doing default, or if you really have a low end rig, go to 70. Audio, nothing really about it. It's all preference. I just audio preset. I use high boost. High boost gives me like the best sounding for footsteps. These are all just preference. Same here. All this is just preference. I do have my FPS counter on, so when I'm streaming, I can see if I'm dipping a lot. Controller. So personally, for my controller, I use a DualShock. I'm on 6.6. I use bumper jumper tactical because it allows obviously my left bumper allows me to jump, my X is to throw attack, and it switches my right analog stick in my circle, so I can actually slide cancel with my analog stick and then melee with my circle. This is very useful if you don't want to spend the money on a scuff, because a lot of people with scuffs are like the beaver controllers. You're able to then use the paddles to slide cancel and all that, but personally, I think this is the best button layout for the buck if you're trying to save your money and just switch your controller settings, honestly. And response curve, just like Modern Warfare, you want to use dynamic because it allows you to snap faster to enemies, way more consistent. Target aim assist, you want that enabled. Target aim assist mode, standard, you want this. Just leave all these at default. The only thing I changed here was my Airborne Mantle behavior, because I noticed in the beta, if I would run behind cover or barrels, if you have this on automatic, you're automatically just gonna run. If you run in the cover, it's automatically gonna make you jump on top. And there's so many times during the beta where I was one shot and I wanted to get behind the cover, and it would just make me jump on top and I would die. So highly recommend changing this to manual. All this is just preference. Alright, so personally, a lot of pros say just go to the dead zone, and when you start seeing stick drift, then leave it. Yes and no. So yes, if you start to see stick drift, you can change it, but most of the time, it's how sensitive you want to make the analog stick. Me personally, I'm comfortable with 1010, and I play on 6.6 like you saw, because to me that gives me the best. I feel somewhat fast, but I also have control, because if I go to 5.5 and play 5.5 or 6.6, my aim gets a little wonky, and I think 1010 is probably like the most consistent and best like dead zone that you can put. All this I just have regular, and then account. If you want to have your server latency showing, you can do widget show, and you want to do packet loss, you can turn this on. Make sure all this is just regular. It's up to you if you want to have party invites disabled or anything, but yeah. That's gonna be it. That's gonna wrap up the video. So thanks for watching. Leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Make sure to let me know in the comments below if you have any other problems with COD, and let me know if I could help you with anything. And yeah, that's it. Peace.